And as we all know, the Doomsday Book came out in 1086, which was a long time ago. So, lovely, well-kept graveyard, and there's memory of a chap called Breakspear. His name Breakspear appears in this area quite a lot. Don't know much about him or her, seems to him, but it's a sort of church. Oh, look at that, 3 graves side by side. Isn't that nice? I hope they got on with each other in life, because they got to in death. And the wonderful thing about wandering around a church, about which I know very little, is that you get constant surprises. James Smith, born at W. Thornton near Shrewsbury in Shropshire, was buried here 13th of October 1729. Can you imagine the scene? Poor old James, he is no more, and it's quite extensive. Beautiful graves, 1729, eh? Crumbs. That's nearly 300 years ago, just that grave. And here they've got a bit mad. They either run out of flint or they run out of stone, because they obviously alternated it in a kind of a chessboard pattern, which is a bit different. But reading up about this, the church, like many before it and after it, was added to over the centuries, with certainly the chancel. I think the earliest part is the chancel. You can ask me what a chancel is, or look it up yourselves. No graves this part of the church, but it's an interesting pattern. And some of these stones have got initials carved in. JT. Who can that be? I've got a subscriber to my channel called JT. I hope they're not related. Oh, look at that. It's a beautiful little garden. I suppose you call it a garden of remembrance. Lots of names here. Don't know where to go really. But there is a very interesting little cemetery near the church. Well, there was. I hope it's still there. I'll wander in the direction that I thought it was in. What I like is how, in such good order, the gravestones are kept. They're all upright, kept nicely, no breakages, which is often what you get in other churches, and with occasional flowers as well, which is great. So that the people, the deceased, are remembered, presumably by relatives and people who like them. You wouldn't leave flowers if you didn't. Oh, look at this. This is a bit ostentatious. I suppose that's one disadvantage in being buried. You can't really tell people how you want everything, how you want your grave to be dressed. Is dress the word? They used to use the word for men buying a suit. They used to say to you, "Oh, hello, sir. And which side do you dress?" I'll leave it to your imagination as to what that means. Anyway, this is a grave dedicated to Davo. When we close our eyes, we see you. When we open our eyes, we miss you. Forever in our thoughts. Davo. Yes. And over there's Martin Francis Saxton, whose nickname was Sax. Madeline Hills, nickname Maddie. So people in this corner of the graveyard seem to have a lot of nicknames. This is the cemetery bit I was looking for. This is well, let's read the write-up. St Mary's Harefield churchyard. During the two world wars, Britain became an island fortress and a base for equipping and training troops and launching land, sea and air operations. Yes, we know that. Today, more than 170,000 Commonwealth men and women who died while serving in the armed forces during the First and Second World Wars are buried in almost 13,000 locations across the country. There was Australian medical care in Harefield. I think there was a hospital here for the Australians and New Zealanders, and I think this little graveyard, sort of subsection of the graveyard, is dedicated to the Australians and New Zealanders who helped us out in the world wars, which was very nice of them, because you know they lived the other side of the world. War didn't really affect them. So here's a typical one. First one I come across. Gunner Kelly, Australian Field Artillery, 26 October 1918, age 39. In loving memory of my dear husband, Jesus have mercy on his soul. Next to him, a chap who died 3 days later, T.W. Dines, MM, private, and so on. But nicely formed, in a kind of lined up in a kind of a military way. But I suppose if you're fighting a war, you really have to be very organised and disciplined, and even in death you can be lined up like this. This is a lovely little quiet cemetery. There's a sort of an obelisk in the centre, obviously not Egyptian, but it's a war memorial, and I shall read out to you what it says at the foot. To the glory of God who giveth us the victory, and in memory of brave Australian soldiers who, after taking part in the Great War, now rest in Harefield churchyard. So I would imagine that a lot of these guys left relatives behind in Australia. And I would also imagine that sometimes, perhaps, a relative might make the trip all the way over to here, Harefield in Middlesex, just out of London, to visit their relative. This memorial is erected by Sir Francis Newdigate, KCMG, now Governor of Western Australia and formerly of Tasmania, Honorary Colonel 11th Battalion Commonwealth Military Forces, and Charles Arthur Moresby Billiard Leake, Squire of Harefield Park, AD 1921. Isn't that marvellous, eh? I can imagine that it must have cost a lot of money, and you know, this memorial was erected in 1921. All these soldiers died in 1918 or earlier, so I don't know what happened in that 3 years. There was a big flu epidemic. There's a poor chap, aged 23, Corporal Albert Stanley Richards, 48th Battalion, died at the Australian Auxiliaries Hospital. There was an Auxiliaries Hospital, I think I mentioned this. A.J. Hobbs, that's a great old English name, but this chap's Australian. Australian Machine Gun Corps, 26, age 32, Riley Jones, age 25. A lot of them died in June 1918, which is very sad because that's pretty near when the war ended. Look how the sunshine has caught the obelisk or the memorial and created a shadow. If you look long enough, you can actually see the shadow move. So it's poignant. It's a wonderful cemetery, and I think I shall sign off there. Thank you very much for watching.